So today, we're going to be looking at things that stress your bees at the landing boards and could actually cause them to become defensive this time of year. I'm also going to give you a quick update on these hive gate units that we have on several of the hives here. I'm Frederick Dunn, and I'm glad you're with me. There are a few things that we really want to go over this time of year. If you'll notice, these are yellow jacket wasps trying to get into a small colony of honeybees, and this one is in a 10-frame Langstroth. The blue piece of plastic that you see sticking out there is called a hive gate. That allows a small colony of bees to still have some kind of defense against things like wasps, and including attacking honeybees that might want to rob them out this time of year. It's October the 15th. Temperature outside is 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 22 Celsius. And I hope that if you're in the northeastern United States, or an area where winter is starting to head our way and the temperatures are cooling down, colonies are getting smaller, and yellow jacket wasps like this one here hovering at the landing board are intent on robbing out your honeybee hives. You have some options. Reduce the entrance. And people often ask me, what size entrance should we have? Well, here's what's worked for me through the years. This time of year, a 3-inch wide opening, 3/8 of an inch in height or less. But 3/8 has turned out to be pretty good, and that's because mice can't get into it. A small colony, a late season swarm, for example, can still defend it. And it also restricts some of the airflow as the nights get colder. What we're doing here is having a single entrance on the hives, and we're going to evaluate these blue hive gate units right through winter here. I live in the snow belt, northeastern United States, state of Pennsylvania, 1,300 feet above sea level, which we're considered an agricultural zone for. That means it gets really cold here. So I haven't completed my evaluation, but I'd like to give you an update on these units. Now, I'm not saying that your only option for defending your beehives is to put a hive gate in it, although these seem to be working really well. You must have your entrance reduced to match the size of the colony of bees that occupy the hive so that they can defend themselves. If you notice here, we have multiple wasps attacking from different angles at the same time. Your honeybees that are at the entrance there, like the landing board bee that's facing us in the center, they have their forelimbs up just like that, their mandibles open up, and they are guard bees. These are older bees in the hive, and this time of year, the more activity there is at the landing board, the more assaults that are occurring, the more guard bees should muster on deck there and be prepared to repel boarders. Look at this yellow jacket here. What are they doing this time of year? Yellow jackets are producing queens. Queen yellow jackets will fly out and get as much nectar as they can, and then they overwinter as solitary wasps. Honeybees, of course, benefit from being social, and because they're social, they have each other's backs. So even while there are bees on the landing board defending, we have a bee coming in here with pollen on her hind legs, bringing in resources, because what are they making right now? Fat-bodied winter bees. So they're at a critical stage in their annual cycle, and that is they have to defend. If they were robbed right now by honeybees or wasps, they could actually lose much of their honey and the resources that they need to survive winter. So it's important for us to take action. Luckily, none of my colonies have been robbed this year so far, and I attribute that to reduced entrances and, of course, the hive gate units. Now, I've got them roughly half and half. We have 21 colonies of bees here. I know that's not a lot, but it is enough for me to make these observations. If you notice, this is a dark scene here, and that's because I wanted to show that wasps put pressure on a hive early in the morning, even at sunrise while it's still cold. And now we have 3 wasps at this entrance. If this were a normal entrance and a small late season swarm of bees occupied this hive, their chances of defending it would be very low. They can't afford to lose the bees because they're actually still trying to develop brood, so they have the numbers necessary to heat themselves in a cluster going through winter. So these wasps are not gaining entrances. If a couple of them do, though, One advantage that we have with this plastic entrance, the hive gate, is that the wasp has to travel through a long, narrow corridor, which in this case is 7 3/4 of an inch in length, or 20 centimeters, before it gets into a space where it can fly up into the hive and hope to rob them of their stores, their resources, or in some cases to steal protein so that they can feed their developing larvae, those queens that they're going to be rearing at the end of the year. Because the honeybees are in a perennial hive. They're going to occupy the same hive, and they're going to cycle through their reproductive stages year-round and stay there year after year. Wasps depart from their paper wasp nests, and they start new nests in the spring, so they overwinter independently. So they are desperate, and they do make bold moves, and in some cases there are dead wasps in front of your beehives. You should also be watching in front of your beehives to see how many dead bees are laying out there. They exchange stings, and a lot of people wonder if a bee stings another bee, or if a bee stings a wasp, would the wasp die from the venom? And they do. Likewise, the bee can be stung by the wasp venom. They sting over and over, and they could also die from that venom. Wasps also, if you notice, they have these meat-cutting mandibles on the front. Much more aggressive than the honeybee. Here we have a bee and a wasp exchanging stings. Now normally when a honeybee stings a mammal, they lose the stinger into that skin, and the serrated edges of the stinger pull the stinger and the venom sac out of the bee, and the bee dies. When they're engaged in insect-to-insect combat, like we're watching here, the bee does not die, and of course the wasps have the ability to sting over and over, and they don't leave their stingers behind. But if we look at the mandibles on this wasp that's now trying to bite one of the guard bees here, they can cut flesh, and they even feed on dead animals. And they sometimes cut apart the bees. When those two fell to the ground there, we look at the ground to see if both the bee and the wasp recover. Most of the time they do, but if they exchange enough stings, the bee, one-on-one, tends to lose out, but they sacrifice themselves in order to defend the colony and keep these wasps from getting through that entrance. And notice we have a wasp that's so angry right here, it's actually biting the feet of another wasp. So even they don't get along. So we've got 3 wasps in this scene, 2 to the left, 1 just out of frame on the right side there, all trying to get in. If this was a normal entrance, all the wasps have to do is get inside one of the left or side openings while they're unprotected, while the guard bees are out engaging with another wasp, or even some aggressive robbing honeybees. And then the others scoot in through the opening. So small openings are critical this time of year, and honeybees themselves are just as dangerous to the colony's survival as the wasps are, because they're going to get in there and they want to get the nectar. And who's doing the robbing? The largest colonies in your apiary or in the vicinity of your apiary. Now here we have a wasp on the ground with bee parts that she's cut away, and she's chewing them up because the wasp herself can't eat this animal protein. She's going to chew it up and fly it back to her paper nest, and they're going to feed their larvae with it. So we know that if they're hauling away meat like this and killing honeybees, that they are also still feeding larvae, which means that they're still producing their queens, so they're not done. And they all need energy, they all need carbohydrates, bees and wasps, and they get that in the form of honey and nectar. So you'll also see these wasps on flowers. We still have cosmos blooming. The Maximilian sunflowers have gone away. We're down to purple asters. Most of the other things, the smaller aster plants, goldenrod is gone. Chopai weed is gone. A lot of the resources that the bees would otherwise have are waning, and that's what pushes them into robbing each other. Now we have a small colony again. Only difference is here we don't have hive gate. We've got a normal reduced entrance. This is 2.5 inches wide and 3/8 of an inch in height, so a mouse couldn't get through there. And we have a small collection of bees defending that entrance, which is very critical. And watch this wasp to the left as she scoots along. The bees going in, that she's following behind there, are not paying attention. The guard bee is at the leading edge of the landing board and also not paying attention to this wasp, and all she has to do is get through that 3/4 inch thick opening, and then they scoot right off to the left, or they scoot right up the interior surface inside the hive, and they're in. The problem with that is, if they get in and they get back out, they fly back to the paper wasp nest with the resources that they've gained, and they come back with, you guessed it, other wasps that now want to take advantage and exploit that opening. The more attacks there are, the more wasps that attack at one time, the more difficult the challenge is for the resident honeybees. And that's why these HiveGate units so far, based on all the reports I'm getting from other people that have them, this study has been going really well. It's a citizen study. We're not doing this at the university level. We're just making comparisons to those that have HiveGates and those that don't. And we're looking to see how the wasps do or do not gain entrance, because it's the number one benefit of having a long, narrow entrance corridor like that is the bee's ability to defend against these wasps at this time of year when they otherwise could be absolutely robbed out. So another thing that people want to know about, what if the colony's larger? Well, that's what we have here too. We also have the HiveGate units, two of them side by side because the colony's large, and look at the behavior of the resident bees. Now this is a sequence that's shot in the late afternoon. And you can see there are a lot of guard bees sitting on deck there, and that tells me that they've been attacked quite a bit. Unsuccessfully, however. But they do, based on the number of bees they have attacking and wasps, they push more and more guard bees out onto the landing board, and you can see them sticking their forelegs in the air, opening their mandibles, and being prepared to grab and inspect every bee that lands on that landing board. We also have pollen still coming in, so they are still working on their brood. Hopefully they're already pupating their heavy-bodied, fat-bodied winter bees, because we are in, of course, just past the second week of October. There isn't a lot of time left, although we're benefiting from unseasonably warm weather here. Look in the lower right corner of the screen and we see a yellow jacket trying to sneak around there. Now she can't just go right in an opening. She has to come around to the front and get into that plastic entrance of the HiveGate unit. And she really would like to get in through the side or through the back. And that's another way that we can tell when we've got robbing bees trying to find an opening to get into a hive. They don't all come to the entrance. You can see them around the cover of the hive. You can see them at the back of the hive. They fly underneath. They're looking for openings that get them into the hive without going through the main entrance. And when you have a long corridor like this double flow, or this double HiveGate unit here, they really can't get all the way into the back, and if one does manage to scoot in, we don't see that wasp come back out. Their chances of finding the opening again and moving through that long corridor to escape and of course bring back more wasps from the nest that they came from, then they eliminate that wasp inside. And when you do your hive inspections later, although we're doing fewer inspections this time of year, you'll find the dead wasps inside, or sometimes the undertaker bees will be dragging them out and flying away with them, just as they do dead and dying bees. We have a big reduction of drones, which are the male honeybees this time of year. They're all being cast out as things cool off and as resources are dwindling in the environment. You'll see dead drone male bees on the ground in front of your hives, and you'll see the workers trying to fly them away, but they're so heavy they often bomb right to the ground within a couple of feet of the hive. And the good news with those dead drones is that that's also what some of your wasps are going to be predating upon. They're going to be chewing them up. They're dead anyway, so they're just going to eat them and use that protein to raise their winter brood, which is going to be, of course, the solitary queens. So a lot of questions that people have been asking would be, when we're condensing down our hives, right now I have two bodies, a deep and a medium. And in some of these late season swarm colonies, I have just a single deep. They have insulated inner covers above, no top venting, and they will have rapid round food resources. We've got a wasp here in the right there, just barely making her escape, while this guard bee does its best to chew away at the wasp. But you know, guard bee mandibles are actually made for shaping wax and feeding baby bees inside the hive. They're really not designed to cut flesh and to be used in combat, although they can bite and it can hurt. they're not good at cutting each other apart with it, where wasps are definitely designed to cut things apart. So if you're seeing a change in your bees, they might be under great pressure from other bees trying to rob them out, and that can create a defensive attitude in your beehives. But the other thing is, unless you have some way of looking at your hives at night, you don't know what else might be putting stress on your bees. And for the second half of this, we're going to be looking at skunks again. So this year we've done a lot of observations on skunks at night. And if you keep watching, I'll show you some of the indicators that skunks have been around and what the skunks actually are capable of. So signs of skunk pressure. So if your bees are normally easygoing, laid back, and this time of year you walk out in the apiary and you're getting stung or head butted, the minute you walk out there to see the bees, you haven't even tried to open a hive yet, that's often because other things are already stressing the bees. There are more guards out there. Guards don't always just sit on the landing board. They watch every move you make, and then you'll see them fly off. So I thought I would use this as a segue here. The local farmer is harvesting his corn. The cornfield immediately adjacent to my apiary is still standing with the corn still on it. And it looks to me like they're just grinding up the corn and the greens and everything and making fodder. So this must be feed for the cattle. And they'll be harvesting the field. And in the foreground there, you see the cosmos, Maximilian sunflowers standing tall. We'll be expanding the cosmos flowers next year because the bees are still benefiting. And they're going to continue to bloom and provide nectar all the way through the end of October and into November. And as if during the day, having wasps and honeybees trying to rob out the hive, at nighttime we have other predators. So here we are with the skunk. But what I've learned through the years, and of course, this last year in particular, is what the maximum height a skunk can reach to get and eat honeybees is. That's 18 inches. So this was the last hive that sat low enough for the skunk to reach. A lot of people say just shoot the skunk. But the thing is, the skunks actually clean up lots of dead bees in front of your hives, which is a benefit. And they also go around and dig out yellow jackets and things like that. So they also dig out grubs. So having skunks around is a good thing in my opinion. We just have to modify our beehives so they can't eat the bees, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's eating the bees. When you look at the ground the following morning, there are no dead bees laying around to be found. Also look at the landing board. There are guard bees out there that are on the landing board ready to defend that hive, and they do this all night long. This skunk comes and feeds in batches of an hour at a time, and that stresses your bees, and this is no great wonder why when you walk out there with your cup of coffee in the morning and you want to visit your beehives, some of the bees just fly right out and let you have it. Well, they've had enough. So another way to reduce the stress on your beehives and your colonies at night is to make sure that your landing boards are at least 18 inches off the ground. Now, thanks to video sequences like this, I get to see how the skunk actually reaches up. See how he puts his paws on the front of the hive first? So the hives that are on the iron T-posts, for example, with metal conduit supporting them, they have no wood directly under them for the skunk to walk up with its front feet the way this one is doing. So we could technically have the hives a little bit lower and just have a horizontal support rather than these adjustable legs, which are part of this flow hive too. And that would keep the skunk from being able to walk up the front. Also, seeing mud on the front of a hive tells you that you've got a predator visiting at night. So you don't have to have a camera to see the activity. You see smashed down grass around the hives if you have grass. You see muddy footprints on the landing boards. You see muddy footprints on the front of the hive and even the sides. So this was the last night for this activity, because now this hive has a landing board at 18 inches. No more skunk feeding. The result? Less defensive bees. I mean, a skunk really doesn't eat enough bees to make a huge impact on their numbers there. It's the activity that keeps your hive alert and awake and defended, and that causes them to consume their resources. Honeybees can't fly out at night because when they do, the light we're looking at here is not visible to the bees. So the video is under an infrared light. That's why it's black and white. Some people have said put a white spotlight in your bee yard, motion activated. Problem is too, when a white spotlight comes on, the bees fly to it. So that's not a good solution either. Red lights are good. That solar powered flashing alarm system works on every other skunk except this one so far. It also works on possums, and the raccoons don't like it. It's solar powered, it's a cool design, and it only activates at night, which is fantastic. You can also leave your windows open in your house at night if you live near your apiary as I do. And then when these alarms go off, you could hear them and run out there with your gun and shoot whatever it is if that's what you want to do. Or raise your landing boards to 18 inches. That's what I've done, and that's what works. And I'm satisfied that we've kind of figured out what skunks do, why they do it, how they do it. And they're eating the bees. They're not chewing them up and spitting them out. And sometimes you'll find skunk scat. Skunk scat is just skunk poo. And that will be full of bees and other bugs that they've been eating. So it's a great way to find out what their nutritional needs are. And I would be very happy to see skunk scat full of yellow jackets. So that satisfies that. Let's look at the daytime follow-up. And I'll show you what the indicators are that your hives are being bothered by predators. So now we're outside, looking for evidence that something's been predating upon our bees at night. And this is what I was talking to you about before. When it's horizontally supported, this is at a 17 inch, so it doesn't meet the 18 inch minimum, but there's nothing under the hive for the skunk to walk its front feet up to reach that landing board. So this particular support system works out. No muddy paw prints on that landing board. They don't even try. So now we look at the ground in front of the hives. Is the grass smushed down? Is there evidence of feeding going on? And let's measure this height. We're at 20.5 inches on that landing board, and there's the hive gate there. Bees ventilating it out after a nice rain here. Then we'll come over here, look at the grass, of course. We're also looking for dead bees and other signs of troubles in the colony. This one's at 19.5 inches, more than enough for that 18 inch threshold. Nice clean landing board, bees doing deck washing there. So scrubbing with their little mandibles in a row with their backs to us. They don't even care that we're there. Now here's our victim. 16 inch landing board. Plenty of evidence that it's being harassed. Look at the aluminum window screens that we roll up and use as entrance reducers here. They've been clawed at by the front paws of that skunk. Lots of mud and dirt on the sides there. And as I said before, since this video was made, we have raised this hive and there are no more visitors to it. This is that fancy ultrasonic emitting beeping unit, ultrasound and audible levels, of course, so that we can hear it. Solar powered, good design. I mean, it scares deer away and other things. Does not work on the skunk. Look at the front of this hive. Nice muddy paw prints there. You can't fault the skunk for trying, but it never reached the landing board. Not like on this one. Now what I did is I pulled these bricks out and I leveled out the ground underneath and I added a third brick. That was all I needed to do. But you can see that the grass is all smashed down here, evidence that you've had a night visitor. And look around for droppings, remains of dead bees. Look to see what's going on. You'll see some footprints, for example, if you don't have a night camera. Skunks have a pretty distinctive footprint. With a lot of grass, it's not that easy to determine. But I'm looking for dead bees. I see a drone there. Got mud. You can see where they stamp around. Now, if this was pavement, we wouldn't necessarily know that the skunk had been there. Look at the scratch marks, the mud. When you see this on the side or front of your hive, you've got some night visitors there. This is made out of cedar. Hive number 14. They did really well this year, by the way. So this colony of bees is going pretty strong. They had some robbing attempts too. You can see a drone stuffed in there on the leading edge on the right. Worker bees. Chickens walk through here too. People often ask, do the chickens eat the dead bees? No, they don't. They don't eat bees, they don't eat wasps. There's a worker there and then a drone facing us. So my bees will eat all kinds of insects, but they definitely avoid venomous insects. They'll run across the yard to get a moth though. So there we have it. No packed out grass there. So if you didn't have a night camera, you would still know if your hives were being visited. That one was raised up there on the right so that it was at an adequate height to keep things away. Now those alarm systems do work to keep the deer away too. Deer don't like noise. Black bears, they don't like noise either. They like to come in quiet. If something surprises them and makes a noise, they move away. So if you notice, I don't have my electric fence around. Probably not wise, but I have twice the number of these noise emitters being put out. So I hope you benefited from this today. Sorry I did not do my normal Q&A. Just wasn't up to it. My voice wasn't holding up. I have a bad cough for some reason. Hopefully I'll be back to full duty next week. I want to thank you for watching today. Hope you learned something. I hope that you are reducing your entrances. And also, if you're in the northeastern United States, you should be packing down your hives. Now, if you have a high hive population, you can only pack down so much. But make sure that your hives are sized right for the population of the bees that are in it. For me, that's 1 deep, 1 medium box. We're going into winter with a couple of deeps on some of them. And in other cases, with late season swarms, we're having single deeps and feeder shims on top of those. So I thank you for joining me and watching today. Look for links down in the video description and further explanation. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. We'll be back next Friday with a Q&A. Thanks for watching.